Hello, and welcome to another episode of Creating Cultures That Outperform. I'm Terry Mays, a certified culture engineer who helps companies bring out the best in their people. My co host Frank Wander is in a client meeting today, so he won't be able to be here with us. So today you get me and me alone. So this should be fun. I'm excited about this. If you've been following us, you know that we're in a series on belonging, and belonging is for everyone. I cannot stress everyone enough. In this age where there's all these buzzwords around diversity and inclusion, equity, it's so important that everybody feel like they belong and not just a subset, not just a clique, not just the in crowd, but that everybody feels like they belong. So make sure you catch up on the last two episodes. You can watch them on LinkedIn, YouTube, or Facebook. And while you're there, click the subscribe button and like us so that we can build that following and that you can get the latest notifications when we post content out here. We're posting weekly, and then as well on LinkedIn, there are other posts that happen. So make sure you check us out. So today is our third episode in the series, and we're going to discuss how to make the roots of belonging grow deeper. So we talked about how to get a person to feel like they can plant themselves in the organization. And now we're going to talk about how do you make those roots grow deeper. So in this era of work that we're in, where before it was people should just be happy that they have a job. That era of work is long gone. This era of work that we're in today, today's workforce, they're more interested in working for companies where they feel like they're valued and are able to make a significant contribution by doing meaningful work. They want to look for a place where they can make a difference, a place where they can make connections, a place where they can belong. So that is very important, very much on the forefront of everyone's mind. So everybody is talking about this employee engagement. They're talking about how to combat the great resignation. So during this time of the great resignation, there are tons of information available and tools on how to combat this disengagement that's happening in the workforce. And a lot of this really stems from people leaving environments where they feel like they don't belong. They don't have a sense of connection to the people that are there, and they feel like the company is not there for them. So why should they be there for the company? There are lots of different reasons that people feel that disengagement. But according to Gallup, 60% of people are emotionally detached at work and 19% are miserable. So think about that for a minute. That's pretty staggering to see that people are emotionally detached, which means they're not engaged. They're not they're not enjoying the work that they're doing. They're not bringing their best value to the table. They're just getting by. They're just doing the bare minimums. And then 19% of those people are just miserable. So think about the quality of work that's being produced in most organizations. Now, this is Gallup. So, Gallup does a lot of different polls at many organizations. So, this is huge. This is something to really take note of. Gallup goes on to say that business units with engaged workers have 23% higher profit compared to businesses with miserable workers. So you don't want your workers to be miserable. You don't want them to be in that space where they are disengaged because it impacts the bottom line. Flat out impacts the bottom line. Disengaged workers add to the bottom line. They actually take away from the profits that your company could be making because you have disengaged employees that are not doing the best. They're not producing their highest quality of work. They feel disengaged. They don't want to participate. And so they're not doing their best. They're not bringing their best self to work. So how do you get more engagement? How do you increase the bottom line? I'm glad you asked me that. You want to build a better sense of belonging. That's what we've been talking about in this series. And belonging is so important. Um, Again, if you haven't been following us, you haven't seen the other episodes, look at the episodes, the first two, because they really do set the stage for what we're talking about today. But that sense of belonging is key to an engaged workforce. You want your workforce engaged because it impacts your money. That's just plain and simple. You Most companies are not nonprofit. They are very much for-profit organizations. And in order to increase that bottom line, a lot of times we focus on other things like employee layoffs and separations, but there's another way that you can get more with exactly what you have, and that's by getting the people that are there to be more engaged. So the goal with engagement is to unlock that hidden potential that's already there. The people are already there, they're already trained, they already have all the information they need. They just need leaders that know how to unlock that hidden potential in them and help bring the best out of them. So last week we discussed how to create an environment where people can plant themselves and begin to take root in the organization. We shared some helpful information on how to start the process and make people have that sense of belonging. Remember, again, it's a feeling. I mean, it's a sensing, yeah, a feeling that people have, that it's not necessarily based on what you think. So again, you've got to focus on the other person, and that perception that they have is so important. So do they have that sense of belonging? And then today, we're going to dig a little bit deeper with the roots growing deeper. So some of the hallmarks of belonging are a safe culture, a caring culture, having warm leaders, leaders that are competent, leaders that can assess organizations and sense what's going on in the organizations, people that are empathetic. All of these are great hallmarks of belonging, because when you're able to get in somebody else's shoes and see things from their perspective, it causes you to lead in a different way. And it causes you to be more alert and sensitive to the people around you, because now you're in tune with the impact of the decisions that you're making every day. You're in tune with the choices that you're making and how they affect other people. So when you see these types of traits in or in the culture, blah 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 blah. When you see these types of traits in the culture and organizational leadership, they're a signal. And I always get the blah blahs. And Frank is not here for me to share that I'm having the blah blahs, but I got the blah blahs again. But when you see these traits, culture and leadership, they're just a signal that there's a high sense of belonging. Those are some things that you can look for, that warmth that you feel from people when you're interviewing for a new job. Do you feel like the people are warm and friendly and outgoing? Is it a stale or sterile environment in the interview? That's usually a signal to the culture in the organization. So pay attention to that. If you don't want to be in organizations where the culture is not healthy, you can get a sense of that culture just by meeting the leaders, because how the leaders are, they are the ones that set the stage for the culture in the room. So make sure that you're paying attention to that. Um, Remember, it's the leader's responsibility to create healthy cultures. It's absolutely on the leaders. So if the culture is not healthy, you really do have to take a look at the leadership and try to understand what's happening in the leadership that's causing this environment that has now become toxic. Because leaders, it's your responsibility to remove those toxic people from the organization, to coach, mentor, train. All of that is on the leaders. You have to develop the people in your organization. So if there are things that are not in place or not correct, it's your job as the leader to correct it. And one of the biggest things that I would say in a lot of organizations need is psychological safety, because it's a key. If people are stressed because they don't feel like they are physically or psychologically safe in an organization, they're going to spend all their time and all of their brain power, all their energy on surviving. They're just going to be doing the bare minimums. They're thinking about how they can make it to the next day. And we've talked about this many times. Survival mode is not the most productive mode for the human brain. And people need to know that their leaders have their back and will stand up for them. So if you want people to bring their best self to work and you want them to be more energized and feel great about what they're doing, then you have to have that psychological safety in place. That leadership has to make the environment a place where it's safe for everybody, not just for some. So people need that warm, competent, caring leaders. They need leaders that will create a culture of belonging where you see these behaviors like acceptance. You see people working together, they're cooperating with each other, they're helpful, they're sharing, there's lots of inclusion. They're not excluding people on purpose because they don't want to deal with them. All of these are great behaviors in an organization that are exhibited by the leaders. So people do what they see the leaders do. And it's so important that leaders are setting that example right away. So caring really does set the stage for people to plant themselves in the organization. So how do we do this? How do we get people to feel like they can establish roots in this organization? They can plant themselves and really begin to thrive in an organization. How do we do this? By providing meaningful work. That's like one of the top things that we can do to help people to understand that what they're doing matters. So they're thinking, does it even matter? What I'm working on, is it important? Does it matter? And how many times have you thought about that in your work and thought this is just busy work? And how does that make you feel? It makes you feel like you're not important at work, that they could do without you. And that's not the way you want people to think. Because when people are doing things that matter, they're energized, they're enthusiastic about what they're doing, they're careful about what they're doing, they're focused on quality, they bring the very best of what they have to offer. Meaningful work absolutely causes the roots to grow deeper. One of the other things you can do is eliminate busy work and non-value added steps in a process. I can't stress this enough either. Busy work is it's no fun. It's an absolute way to get people to disengage when they have to do things that don't add value, that don't make sense. And everybody knows that it doesn't make sense and it doesn't add value, but we're doing this because we've always done it this way. That is a surefire way to get people to disengage. They will absolutely just stop participating in the nonsense. So you don't want to do that. You want to focus on enablement. Does everybody have what they need? Do they have the tools they need to do their job effectively? Are there enough people working there? Are the teams strengthened by training? And do they have the materials and physical materials they need? All of those things are so important. Are people being stretched too thin? Are there things that we can stop doing or start doing that can make everybody's life a little bit easier? So all of those things help people feel more connected and they feel like people care about them, which in turn makes them plant their roots a little bit deeper. And then the last thing I want to talk about is giving people a voice. So make sure that everybody has a voice. People need to be able to share their opinions and their ideas openly and freely without feeling like they're going to be penalized or have some sort of retribution brought against them if they share their idea. You want to hear what people are thinking. You absolutely want to know what's on people's minds because that's what's going to help you make the environment more engaging. So, Marcelo, can you bring up the key takeaways? So, we've talked about a lot. I've been rambling on and on and on, and I'm used to having Frank there to balance me out. So, this has been really good show. Here are some of the key takeaways for this episode, and really listen to this episode and the previous ones because they all connect together. This information is so important. So how do we create that sense of belonging? How do we increase it? Be transparent. Build that sense of community. Don't hold things back from people. I know there are times when you can't share everything, but share what you can and actually tell people, I have other information that I cannot share, but I will share it later, or I will share the results, or I will give you some sort of insight into what's happening. Don't leave people in the dark because it makes it seem like the company has something to hide from them. And then it's just going to be some explosion that happens that's going to be a negative output. So nobody wants negative outcomes. They're all going to run away from that. So make sure you're being transparent and you have that sense of community where people can trust each other, they can lean on each other, they can share ideas, they can make those connections. So you want that type of community in your organization so that people don't feel like they're alone. You want to make sure that you're providing growth opportunities for people, that you're offering training and mentoring. These are so critical, especially in certain fields, in the medical field, technology, all of these fields that have constantly changing requirements and changing rules and regulations. You want to make sure you're giving people opportunities to learn, that they're able to grow and not have their skill set grow stale. You want to solicit feedback and do something about what you hear. You want to make sure that you're not just collecting all these engagement surveys and then the reports just go and collect dust. You want to take those engagement surveys results and do something about what you hear. If you're soliciting feedback through employee roundtables or just, I used to call them drive-bys, but just kind of talking to people as you walking in the hallway, you pass somebody in the hallway, or you're sitting down in the break area and having real genuine conversations with people. Listen to what they're saying and then do something about what you hear. As a leader, you have an obligation to do that because remember, their perception is reality. So, whether or not it's true, if the leaders care, but it's perceived that they don't, then to everyone else, the leaders don't care. And that perception is what will overrule anything that is done. So, make sure that people can see the real truth of what you feel and how you feel about them. You want to create that space where people feel like they belong there. They don't want to leave because they belong there. So, your move. Are your employees miserable? Remember that quote from earlier, that statistic from Gallup earlier, where 19% of people are absolutely miserable at work. So, are your employees miserable? Find out. Look to see if people are miserable. And then what can you focus on? Those one or two things that you can focus on to bring about change. So, we look forward to seeing you next week on another episode of Creating Cultures That Outperform. I'm Terry Mays, and I'll see you later. Bye for now.